whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a spider pig. Spider pig, spider pig, does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a spider pig. Spider pig, spider pig, does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a spider pig. Spider pig, spider pig.
I'll complete my revenge when I kill you and destroy this school. I'll make sure you go to hell slowly, but not before you beg like a dog. Okay, whose sword wants a taste of this chickadee's flesh?
I know mine does.
Me too. Yeah.
A sword is a tool to save people with.
That's funny. Maybe you should worry about saving yourself right now. What's wrong? Daddy's not here to protect you. What's up, Nishiwagi?
I'm sorry.
It's the Wanderer.
You'll put her down gently, you will.
I remember you from yesterday.
I had a feeling that I should have taken care of you right then.
You mustn't get involved. You're no match for him. Ah!
Another fool who thinks the sword can bring out people's potentials.
No. A sword is a weapon. The art of swordsmanship is learning how to kill. That is the truth. What Niskauru says is sweet and innocent talk that only those whose hands have never been stained with the blood of men can believe.
Huh?
So if you've seen a large amount of shonen anime, you probably noticed a lot of them have these broad, prolongable concepts that can go on and on forever and ever. So what you about? A boy who wants to be ninja president of his ninja village? How long can that take? 15 years, 700 chapters. How about you? You're about a boy who can see and fight ghost monsters, but as your story progresses, you don't know what you want to be about? 15 years, 686 chapters. Oh, and you're about a boy sailing the grand seas, looking for treasure with his pirate homies so you can be the pirate king. And it's One Piece. We already know by the time this series is done, we're gonna be looking at our great grandkids from the other side. You see, I love Naruto, but when they started talking about chakra coming from a tree, ninjas coming from the moon, and had Killer Bee hopping into a mech, I couldn't help but feel like it lost the flair that made me love it in the first place. A series that doesn't run into this problem though is Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin follows the story of a man named Tamura Kenshin on his path to redemption and atonement. In his past endured Japan's Boshin War, Kenshin worked as a highly skilled assassin that killed a haunting amount of people. He killed so many that he became known as Batosai, the Manslayer. Now in the Meiji era of Japan, Kenshin wields a reverse blade sword and has vowed to never kill again on his journey of atonement. The world and the characters of Rurouni Kenshin are enriched in Japanese culture and history. But this isn't a history lesson, so I'm not going to go into detail about all that stuff because you can still enjoy this series without knowing the specifics of its historical influences. This brings me to one of the reasons why I feel this shonen is one of the best. It's amazing storytelling. Right from the first episode or the first chapter, you can tell where the series is going, and that's not to say that it's predictable, rather that all the twists and turns that it takes flow naturally within the story. Putting the creator Nobuhiro Watsuki's disturbing criminal past aside, it's clear he knew how he wanted his story to unfold, and an excellent job is done getting to the end. When it comes to shonen, we all know the guy what feels like hundreds and hundreds of arcs that can sometimes be long-winded and even draining to follow. Like, dang, how long is it gonna take you to put the hands on this flamboyant metrosexual alien creature? God! Unlike a majority of other shonen series that include a bountiful amount of arcs, Rurouni Kenshin gets straight to telling the story it once heard, with the manga only having 3 arcs that all flow seamlessly into each other. The first arc of Kenshin, the Tokyo arc, does what you would imagine a first arc to do. It introduces us to our main cast of characters, begins to explore themes of the story, and sets us some pretty important plot points for the rest of the series. It's during this arc that we are introduced to the duality within Kenshin, as he goes through a constant battle between Homura Kenshin and Tosai the Manslayer. The second arc is the Kyoto arc, and it's here everything really begins to pick up, and where Rurouni Kenshin becomes a tale of its own. Everything we get a taste of during the first arc is now expanded upon and complemented with new elements. It's during this arc that Kenshin comes into terms with being Kenshin Homura, and also where he begins to understand what that means for him and to the people who are a part of his life. If you've heard anything about Rurouni Kenshin, you've probably heard that this is one of the greatest arcs done in Shonen. And if you haven't, I'm here to tell you, this is one of the greatest arcs done in Shonen. But we're going to be talking about that later. The final arc of this series is the Gentry arc, which has yet to be faithfully adapted outside of the manga, although there's a live action movie on its way that seems to be pretty promising. This is where not only the story concludes, but also where Kenshin's character arc comes to an end. Kenshin literally battles his demons, which are brought into existence through this arc's antagonist, Enishi. If you're a fan of Kenshin and have not read this final arc, do yourself a favor and give it a read. Storytelling aside, when it comes to criteria for a shonen, this series has checks across the board. It's just so goddamn good. Where do I even start? For first glance, something that really sets this series apart from others within the genre is that Rurouni Kenshin is grounded in a realistic setting. You hear a lot of references to real-world martial arts, weapons, techniques, and so on. Some characters are even based on people that actually lived during the time of the story. This realistic approach allows you to get more sucked in. You don't have to suspend your disbelief too much to get into it. We see this approach find its way to other aspects of the series as well. Although the animation of the anime really ain't all that, the writing for these fights are top notch. A lot of the time we see tactics and strategy being deployed. These guys are over here predicting each other's movements, snapping elbows, and breaking each other's stances. It's real life Sekiro up in his bitch. More goes into these fights than just who's bigger and who's stronger. It's crazy, for example, how the character design of Kenshin comes into play during his battles. Kenshin is a small, short, skinny man, but don't get it fooled, he's still got them hands for anybody getting reckless. In one fight, Kenshin baits a much larger opponent to gradually speed up their body to the point it can't handle and breaks down. This guy's larger body couldn't handle the speeds, but Kenshin can due to his smaller frame. We also see this way of finesse when it comes to the series' huge variety of techniques. I can't even pronounce over 90% of these, but whenever I hear the characters shout out their tech names, it got me pumped. The fighting styles here actually hold weight. There's points where characters have to figure out how to break through these styles in order to get the win. Speaking of characters, when it comes to the characters of Rurouni Kenshin, these guys are grown-ass men, with our protagonist Kenshin being 28 years old. As a result of this, we get a pretty mature approach to topics and themes. For now, I'll cover some aspects that make Kenshin such a great character and talk about the other characters during the Kyoto arc portion of this video. Kenshin is a powerful character done right. Kenshin can walk up on any random stranger and say, dead man, and not get his ass beat. Kenshin is a user of the Hiten Mitsurugi style, a powerful sword style that uses high-speed movement and beating opponents' moves to attack efficiently with minimal effort. This may sound overpowered, but as discussed earlier in the video, a good chunk of Kenshin's fights are won through wit and outplaying his foes. It's a good way to handle a character that's so skilled and literally has over a decade and then some in fighting experience under their belt. Apart from being handled well in a battle aspect, I grew attached to Kenshin's character right from the first moments I saw him. Kenshin is a tormented soul with multiple layers to him. Although I wouldn't say he's necessarily complex, there's so much going on with him that makes you interested in learning more about his past and what caused him to get to his current point. I couldn't help but feel conflicted, just as he was with his past and the man he is at present, thinking about how his journey of atonement would go, and if it would even be possible for him to atone. Kenshin interacts with the characters and world around him in such a compelling manner. There's so much wisdom in the words he speaks. His dialogue catches the essence of a man who has experienced the sorrows of life superbly. Just as he grants multiple characters in this world wisdom, I feel my perspective on life is broadened as well. With all these great things being said though, the series really begins to shine when you get to the greatness that is the Kyoto arc. The Kyoto arc is the arc that cemented Rurouni Kenshin's status as a classic shonen manga. Right from the first couple of scenes, we were shown that this is going to be something much different from what we first experienced. We start off with a flashback of Kenshin's run-in with the opposing Shinsengumi. There's blood and murder, the message is clear. the story is shifting. In the present, one of our cast members are hit with the bloodiest takedowns we've seen thus far, which leads Kenshin to finding out that a rival from his past has paid a visit to his loved ones. Now we are introduced to Saito Hajime. What follows next is a beautifully executed battle between Saito and Kenshin, an excellent display of visual storytelling. This is just an amazing way to kick off an arc, with the build up to this point dramatic and gripping. We get great fight choreography, good animation, and a dynamic use of colors amongst other things, all while the story is still being pushed forward, giving us, the audience, a first-hand experience of how those from the Boshin War fought 10 years ago. It's a bloody battle to the death with teeth getting knocked out, and these two doing whatever it takes to get the edge over the other. I've seen this fight multiple times, and I'm now just noticing that Saito tried to behead Kenshin with the sharp side of his own blade. The battle is interrupted, but the story still doesn't miss a beat. With the plot of this arc unfolded, Kenshin is tasked with defeating Makoto Shishio, his successor from the revolution. Thought to be dead, now he has come and threatened the peaceful Meiji era that Kenshin has fought for. To end this act, we get a scene between Saito, a corrupt politician, and the assassin that's hired by him. The politician is thinking up dishonorable ways to raise his seat of power, but before he's able to finish, Saito comes and brutally beheads his hired assassin. Before he goes to finish the politician, he lets known, if anyone allows greed to overcome them, they will be tried by the Shinsengumi law. Evil must be eradicated. The politician pleads for his life and even offers money. Saito's response: you could tame a dog with food, you could tame a man with money, but there is nothing that could tame a wolf of Mibu, as he lands the final blow. This scene encapsulates everything about Saito we need to know. His origins and the principles he lives and abides by are made clear. This is how you introduce an arc. The Kyoto arc is packed full of beautiful, well-executed moments, such as the ones earlier mentioned. It's where the story follows the structure of the battle shonen genre more closely, but with its own ambitious approach. Take for example Kenshin's training. Training is something very common when it comes to battle shonen, but here it's approached with an extra amount of grace. Kenshin learning his ultimate move wasn't a result of him getting stronger in the physical sense, but rather because he reinforced himself from within. We get multiple scenes showing Kenshin's past during these training segments. We learn Kenshin's origins and how they trickle down into affecting the man that he is at present. When it comes for the final trial of Kenshin's training, what finally allows him to master this technique is him learning to value his own life. Kenshin's development of strength comes from him being developed as a character. Throughout his 10-year journey, he has been sacrificing himself to protect the weak, but neglecting how his newfound comrades would feel if anything were to happen to him. How can you protect the peace of the weak at the cost of disrupting the happiness of your loved ones? Is this scene where Kenshin, once Batosai the Manslayer, becomes Kenshin Homura, all in a powerful and visually satisfying sequence. There's much to talk about when it comes to what the Kyoto arc does well. I could talk about Kaoru, who acts as a motivation for Kenshin and how she goes on her own journey through womanhood, or how weaker characters like Yaiko get their own moments to shine, or even how well Aoshi's descent to madness and obsession is captured and conveyed to the audience. But I really want to touch on the antagonists of this arc. You got Shishio and his task force, the Drupan Gatana, consisting of an anorexic Zubat cosplayer, Universe 6 Bobby named Boo, and a cross-dressing Trap. But within this group, there's two members that really caught my attention, Anji and Sojiro. Anji is a fallen Buddhist monk with extreme views on how to accomplish salvation. Hearing and seeing what brought him to this point and how it caused him to have this warped sense of thinking tugged at my heartstrings. Seeing his backstory actually got me to sympathize with him. But this is taken up a notch when we come face to face with Sojiro, Shishio's apprentice. As Shishio's apprentice, he embodies the same line of thinking instilled to him by his master. If you're strong, you live. If you're weak, you die. When faced with Kenshin, who's the antithesis to this ideology, Sojiro begins to question his master's teachings and eventually breaks down. Kenshin, who doesn't kill and goes as far as protecting the weak, is a conundrum that he can't wrap his head around. The teachings of his master are what allowed him to survive in his life or death situation. Him beginning to question this ideology is as good as questioning his very existence. There's so much depth going on with this character. He works with the story and parallels with Kenshin insanely well. His last appearances on screen were highly satisfying for me. Without going too much in detail, it's just great writing that you should experience for yourself. Then you have the classic shonen antagonist, Darth Vader meets Revenge of the Mummy looking ass, Shishio Makato. Shishio Makato works great as a villain for this series. He's sadistic, sinister, and just outright cruel. I couldn't help but be interested in him as a character. Shishio is written with this charisma that just jumps out to you through the screen. There's so many highlights with this character, but what I love most about Shishio is that he feels like so much more than just a villain put here for writing's sake. His goals and ambitions are clear cut and they align with his ideologies sensibly, but at the same time there's a steep contrast between him and Kenshin that reinforces the themes of the story. When asked by Yaiko if winning the battle made their sides the right one, Kenshin responds that both them and Shishio fought for what they believed was right, and as such it's not for them but for the generations to come to decide which side was the right one. This can be seen reflected in Kenshin and Shishio's final battle. The final battle between Shishio and Kenshin is more than just good versus evil. Kenshin fights to preserve the peace of the Meiji era, an era where the weak can have a chance to grow, prosper, and where younger generations don't have to experience the grim sights that he did. Then you have Shishio who, albeit through a crueler means, seeks to bring a more powerful Japan that can stand in the face of opposing threats, with Shishio even seeking to bring industrial advancements to Japan, such as utilizing petroleum over coal. Hearing this may make us immediately favor Kenshin's ideologies and go as far as saying that it's the right one. But with all this being said, is one's vision absolute over the other? Just because one aligns more with our morals doesn't make that ideology, that vision, the correct one. There's plenty of things and concepts like this in Rurouni Kenshin that make you think. You can ask another person what this series says to them and you more than likely will hear different answers from different people. It's further proof that this series is simply a work of art. But for me, what I take away from Rurouni Kenshin is to look within yourself and find the purpose that leads you to the happiness that we all deserve as human beings. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you got a laugh, giggle, or even a chuckle from the video, why not share the video and the joy with a friend? Do all that fancy schmancy YouTube stuff down below. I'm not even gonna say what to do because you already know what to do by now. So with that being said, I'm about to,
Hey, you finally got your wish and the odds are even. So now what are you waiting for? Come on! I heard Shishio tell stories that the great Batusai never hesitated in battle. Oh well, I guess you've forgotten that slashing people is exciting. It's really delicious fun. Perhaps you just need an example.
Don't do that!
Allow me to demonstrate by eliminating our country's future! Finally, he's been pushed out of his hole!
You shouldn't have let Joe bait him like that.
You made a fool of me and now I'm returning the favor! It's a little late to watch your back! What the hell just happened to him? It's as though he became the devil himself!
I'll show him hitting Mitsurugi style close up.
And he'd never be able to go back to being a wanderer again.
Hey. Now why is the legendary Batusai the Manslayer hesitating to draw a weapon? Alright, if it's cause you've forgotten how great killing somebody can feel, I can help you remember what it's like. By giving a demonstration. Yori! Looks like I'm gonna be chopping me up a child of the new generation! Y'all fell for the oldest trick in the book!
He was only trying to lure Himura closer.
I'm gonna make you pay for making a fool out of me! Gotcha! I'm gonna skewer you from behind! What? That move. He ain't human. It's almost like he's some kind of machine. Jitten Mitsurugi style. Ryukan-sen Sumoshi!
Okay, so if you clicked on this video, then you probably are already interested in, or at least aware of, the shonen series Rurouni Kenshin. But since any and all anime versions of Kenshin are many years in the past now, and since I am an old angry man who was coming up in his teens in the early 2000s when it was coming out, that makes this the perfect storm of a video for me to direct you to exactly how to enjoy the anime series, what to watch, what to avoid, and give you a guideline of the best way to watch Rurouni Kenshin. This is even more important considering a brand new Kenshin anime is slated for 2022. We don't know what arcs of the series that it's going to cover, but no matter which direction it goes, this comprehensive list will help you get prepared for it. But before we get into it, if you please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for various anime, manga, movie, and existential life dread type content. Everyone that subscribes to the Real Life Ryan channel gets a free spot in joining my Juppon Gatana, and together we will conquer Japan and take it over with a new ruling government and abolishing their backward-ass copyright laws, thus freeing people like Totally Not Mark and any other AniTuber out there. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel and join the righteous cause. You know you want to. Anyway, let's start this off. So, you want to get into Rurouni Kenshin. Where do you begin? Well, first and foremost, my answer is the manga. Yeah, I know this is an anime video, but dear God, the manga is the best and ultimate source for Kenshin. For one thing, it gives you the entire story from start to finish, which no anime is going to do. It's much darker than most of the anime versions, with a little bit more of intense violence, and it's completed. It's a finished series, 28 volumes and 255 chapters. This manga is long enough to enjoy a good journey, but it's not so long that it overstays its welcome. And I'm not including the revival Hokkaido arc here because I'm only talking about the original manga run from 1994 to 1999. And all existing Kenshin anime adapt from within that run. But anyway, if you would rather watch the anime than read manga, I still got you covered. So let's start from the beginning. The first thing we have to look at is the 95-episode anime series by Aniplex, just titled Rurouni Kenshin. It aired continuously in Japan, but in the West and other places, it's tend to be separated into 3 seasons, which will make it a little bit easier to talk about. Overall, though, this is the anime you want to go with. It has the traditional 90s animation style, and though the early episodes are a little stunted and cheap, it does get much better as it nears the end of Season 1 and into Season 2. The action quality is up to standard for the time, and the OST is absolutely iconic and really enhances a lot of the emotional and intense moments. This is the anime to go to if you want the fullest Kenshin experience in anime form and with the most amount of consistency. However, and this is a big however, this series is filled with a ton of filler material. And if for some reason you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just say it quickly. So, filler is what is known as what happens when the anime staff is either catching up too quickly to the manga or needs to create some extra stories to fill time, such is the case with this 90s version. But luckily, you have me here to guide you, so I will tell you exactly what to watch and what to avoid. Now, a lot of this comes down to preference. Not all the filler in Rurouni Kenshin is bad, but a lot of it is just simply forgettable and sometimes doesn't make sense. As in, how do you give Kenshin, a master swordsman, a reasonable threat within a 20-minute episode? Most of the antagonists that can actually stand toe-to-toe with him tend to last for a long arc or multiple episodes, so watching Kenshin suddenly struggle against lower-tier enemies can feel pretty forced. Not to mention, a lot of the filler episodes focus on slice-of-life and comedy-style episodes, and there's a few episodes where it works, but mostly it doesn't. Anyway, let's start with Season 1. So Season 1 of the anime adapts from chapters 1 through 47 of the manga, mostly going straight through the story, but adding in occasional filler episodes here and there. If you want to avoid the filler episodes and just watch what's adapted from the manga, then you watch episodes 1 through 12, then episodes 19 through 21, and finally episodes 23 and 24. Those are all the episodes that actually adapt the manga. Like I said, most of the filler episodes in Season 1, they're fine, but they're not really going to give you anything memorable. Then we get to Season 2, and this is the absolute peak of Rurouni Kenshin. Season 2 of the original 90s anime adapts the Kyoto arc from the manga, which is, in my humble opinion, the best overall arc of the manga. And Season 2 has no filler at all. It is straight up, full, balls to the wall, an adaptation of the Kyoto arc of the manga, and the action is incredible, the themes are beautifully displayed, and it has who I think is a top 5 best shonen antagonist ever in Makoto Shishio. All around, it does complete justice to the manga, and sure, it's a little less graphic to fit in with the edited TV standards of Japan in the 90s, but it doesn't take much away from the feeling of what Kenshin is supposed to be. That's all there. Anyway, Season 2 would cover chapters 48 through 151 of the manga, and takes place from episodes 28 through 62 of the anime. But then you get to Season 3, and Season 3 of Rurouni Kenshin is the exact polar opposite of Season 2, meaning that Season 3 is 100% filler. All of it. It adapts nothing from the manga. By this time, the anime was too caught up with the manga, so they needed to keep creating filler storylines, all of which are really tough to get through, and the series was canceled before they could continue the manga, which is a shame for many reasons. One, because the next and final arc of the manga is the Jinshu arc, which is arguably just as good as the Kyoto arc, and has what I think are some of the best individual moments and scenes from the entire manga. The anime even planned to eventually continue this, including characters from the Jinshu arc like Tomoe in the end credits of Season 3, but she never actually appears in the series. So, watch Season 3 at your own disclosure. There are some filler stuff that's okay. The mini Son of God arc is kind of the highlight, but it's still not a very high bar. And there is one slice of life episode later on where all the Kenshin ladies go out on the town together, and it's cute, but yeah, not too great. The final episode of this anime as well feels like a very abrupt send-off and doesn't really give much resolution to anything. So yeah, episodes 63 through 95 are pretty much skippable unless you are just a huge fan of this anime in particular and want more of it, regardless of quality or if it relates to the manga. Now, the next thing I'm going to mention is the Rurouni Kenshin anime movie, and there's a lot of confusion surrounding this one, and lots of people forget it actually exists, which is understandable because it's not very good, and it's also incredibly hard to find. But it is technically canon to the anime series, so it's the same animation style and more or less fits in either after Season 2 or after Season 3. It doesn't really matter where you put it. But no, it also does not adapt any of the manga and can also be classified as filler. It came out in 1997, and I barely remember anything about it. I don't even know where it's available to watch, and I can barely find any clips of it. This seems like something that's become kind of lost to time. Also, there's a lot of confusion starting here because in the West and some other countries, this movie is called Samurai X, the movie. Now, Samurai X is also the title of the Kenshin OVAs, which I will talk about in a minute, but this movie is canon to the anime series that we just discussed. It is not canon to the Samurai X OVAs. So how does this happen? Well, the 90s were an odd time for anime. When being brought over from Japan for whatever reason, the 95-episode anime series got licensed by Media Blasters, but the movie and the OVAs got picked up by ADV Films. To avoid right conflicts, they couldn't be titled the same thing for one reason or another, so one got titled Rurouni Kenshin and the other rebranded to Samurai X. But the Samurai X movie is supposed to be included with the Rurouni Kenshin anime continuity, but then it's all filler anyway, so it doesn't matter at all at the end of the day, but like I said, it's kind of confusing, but I hope I cleared that up for you at least a little bit. Also, you don't need to watch this movie at all. But then let's move on to the other Samurai X title properties. First, we have Samurai X Trust and Betrayal, released in 2000. And this is a 4-episode OVA specifically covering Kenshin's backstory when he was a deadly assassin fighting within the Revolution of Japan. Kenshin was not a samurai, but yeah, whatever, Samurai X. It sounds cool, I guess. Should have made it Samurai Triple X. Yeah. Anyway. This 4-episode miniseries is very different from the 95-episode anime, both in tone and in animation. This takes a very serious approach to the Kenshin mythos and cuts out most of the humorous scenes. The anime is dark, gritty, and graphic when it comes to the kills and gore. Not to mention the art style and colors are much more subdued and meant to give you a real uncomfortable existential feeling. Now, this does adapt a portion of the manga that the other anime never got to, specifically chapters 165 through 179. Now, some people think that this OVA adapted the entire Jinshu arc, but this is incorrect. As you see, it only covers about 14 chapters of it. So, part of the Jinshu arc, yes, but only about a fourth of it. And also, some people consider this to be a prequel to the first anime series, and though what happens in these 4 episodes is the correct backstory, it does not contradict anything from the first anime series, so I guess you could say that it's canon, but they're really not. This OVA was made on its own and to be its own thing. It has its own style, its own animation, tone, music, that is just a version that is meant to be much more adult-oriented. They don't match up whatsoever with the 90s series, but if you want to know Kenshin's story, this OVA is essential to watch. It's an absolute must, and it works phenomenally even if you haven't seen the 90s anime series. Being that it's Kenshin's backstory, you don't really need any prior knowledge coming into watching this. And it ends on a tragic note, but also feels definitive. So this can totally be watched on its own with no other anime, and you would still have an enjoyable experience. Next we have Samurai X Reflections, released in 2003. And, oh boy, okay, so this is the very definition of a mixed bag. This is a 2-episode OVA that, well, I guess it's canon to the first Samurai X OVA, but it skips over the entire manga story, only including some flashbacks, and then makes up its own ending for Kenshin's story that has nothing to do with the ending of the manga. So this is just something completely different of its own. Again, it's not canon to the 90s anime series, but it doesn't contradict it either. But everything that was supposed to happen in the manga, it still happens, you just don't see it. Episode 1 is mostly from Kaoru's point of view and has flashbacks showing various scenes from the manga in that darker, grittier style that was pretty consistent and established in the first Samurai X OVA. But then the second episode, it just goes everywhere. First, they adapt just a little bit more of the Jinshu arc. We actually get to see its main antagonist, Enishi, grown up, but instead of adapting the entire arc, they only show one moment of it, and then the final battle between Kenshin and Enishi on the beach. So I can't tell you really what chapters it adapts. I mean, I guess these ones a little bit, but it doesn't really adapt any. It basically is just trying to say, oh yeah, these things happened, but it hardly goes into any detail. So basically, it tries to adapt the finale of the Jinshu arc within the span of about 15 minutes, but with no prior plot line getting us there. And then, it just makes up its own ending to the Kenshin story that is nothing like what the manga was. That's not to say the ending here in Reflections is horrible, it's just not correct. So how do I recommend this one? I don't know. I would honestly say skip it, but then again, it is the only anime adaptation we have of Kenshin versus Enishi, so it's kind of worth checking out, but just know it redirects itself and is not consistent at all with the manga. Then finally, we have Rurouni Kenshin, the new Kyoto arc from 2013. And I'm not going to be delicate with this. This is a piece of hot flame and garbage shit that never needed to existed and deserves to be run over by a truck before being blasted into space, never being heard from again. This is a 2-part anime movie that adapts only the Kyoto arc of the manga. For what purpose, I don't know, because you know how I said the Kyoto arc is the best arc of the series and that the 90s anime pretty much did it perfect? Well, this just takes the arc and shits all over it. The first mistake is trying to cram the entire story within 2 episodes, which means it's chopped up to shit, with a ridiculous amount of cutscenes and things cut out for time. But what is kept in the episodes, a lot of it is changed for no reason. There's narrative beats, character deaths, the final battle with Shishio. It's all changed, it's all rushed. It feels like they're trying to shove so much content in such a small container. And it's a complete misunderstanding of a lot of the scenes, like when Kenshin has the choice to use a sword he thinks is real against an opponent, something he never vowed to do, or in the final fight with Shishio. And I'm just gonna spoil it, because fuck it, don't watch this version. Kenshin splits Shishio's head wide open. You know, Kenshin, whose entire purpose of his character in this part of the story is having a vow to never kill again. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The animation is also so flat and stunted, and overall, I have no idea why they wanted to try to make this. It's pointless, it's stupid, avoid it at all costs. But that about does it, guys. That was the last Kenshin anime until the most recent announcement. Now, I wouldn't expect anything until probably late 2022, if at all, but I also don't know what exactly the new anime is going to adapt. It seems way too late to try to continue the 90s series canon and finally adapt the Jinshu arc, but from what I understand, this will be a series and not an OVA. So, I feel like it could either be a complete reboot starting from the beginning of the manga and adapting the entire thing without filler, which would be amazing. B, adapting the Kenshin Revival, which is the Hokkaido arc, which started in 2017, and admittedly, I have not read that, and that's a story for another time. Or C, maybe this is a completely anime original series and won't follow the manga at all, which could go either direction. Whatever the case, at least you have a guideline of where to begin if you want to start getting into Kenshin through the anime. I've been meaning to make this video for a long time, and I'm happy to finally bring it to you guys. So, let me know what you think of my breakdown, and if you're a Kenshin anime fan,
I've never seen so much money in all my life.
The heck, Bobby?
Letting down your guard to clear away the body of a single wounded man was a fatal mistake. Then and now. Makoto Shishio! Your head belongs to me!
Lord Shishio!
All right, Saito!
What's going on here? I'm positive I saw him connect. It was a clean hit.
If I recall, I once told you before that since you were like us in so many ways, I was sure that you would try to ambush me one day. Hachikane. When I was set on fire, it was because I had been shot in the head first. I was taken advantage of because I couldn't move. So in order to not repeat that same mistake, I made sure to concentrate my defense around here. You didn't do enough research, did you, Hajime Saito? You had the opportunity of a lifetime in your hands, and you blew it. I'm assuming that Usui was the one who injured your legs. I guess he proved to be useful after all. I have to say that I'm impressed that your Gatotsu was so strong with your legs the way that they are. But that'll be your last one, I'm afraid. I hope it was good for you. Why don't you and the Batosai reminisce about the past in hell? I'm sure you two have a lot to chat about.
Unfortunately, I'm not prepared for death yet. I won't be until I'm certain you're dead.
To think that Hajime Saito, a former member of the Shinsengumi, would risk his life for the pathetic Meiji government. What exactly are you fighting for, Saito? Don't tell me that you're like the Batosai, fighting for the weak in some pitiful sense of justice.
There is only one thing I ever fought for, and it remains the same today. It is the only justice that I care about. In other words, Ak-So-Zan.
Fighting for no other reason except Ak-So-Zan. Unlike the Batosai, you're easy to figure out.
Then let's finish this.
Do you honestly expect an attack that you've already shown me once to work again? It seems the wounds on your legs are slowing your thrust down quite a bit. In other words, Usui, despite his grudge, has proven himself highly nutritious to me after all. Then again, with that Hirazuki of yours, even if Usui hadn't managed to injure you, I still wouldn't consider your techniques much of a threat.
It's just like he said. There's no way that Saito can beat him. But still, he's fighting him, even though he's got nothing other than his Gatotsu. Saito.
Now I understand. So that's how you... know. That's how the Shinsengumi fought their battles. Why don't you show me how the Wolf of Mibu lives? Come on!
Gatotsu second style! Ha! Yeah! Yeah! Gatotsu third style! Ah!
So this is all a stupid dog like you remembers. It looks like you've run out of tricks.
You've dropped your guard to say that. The only cure for your disease is death.
Gatotsu zero style! Ha!
Drop my guard. What are you talking about? This is what you call composure! I never expected an attack that was a point-blank Gatotsu. You did better than I thought for a dog sent by the government. And also, you're not like the Batosai at all, are you? You really intended to kill me when you attacked. For that, I'll make sure your name is mentioned in the history I'm creating.
And that's it. Part 2 next Monday.
Letting down your guard.
He's a pig. Look out! He is a spider pig. Spider pig, spider pig. Does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web. No, we can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is. He's a spider pig. Spider pig. Spider pig does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, we can't. He's a pig. Look out.